Hey, hey, you know what time it is? Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! We are back, lovelies. We are back. We're back. Hi, y'all. I'm back. I know I've been gone for a while. I had a couple of discrepancies in my own personal life that have since been fixed, but I'm back. Hi. I hope everybody's having a fabulous day. Oop, I'm messing up. Let me get my headphones. Hold on. Going down the racetrack. All right. Hi. Just enjoying my day off. Okay. That together. All right. Now we cooking with grease. That is a phrase that I grew up hearing quite frequently. Or, what else? Cool beans. That's something I say a lot. Or, oh, that's not kosher. But yeah, now we cooking with grease. I hope everybody's having a lovely day. Like I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max and relax and chillaxing time, mean time, in between time, scheme time, break time, study time, half time, CP time. Anytime you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, adventure, and many, many more in between. Now, let's go ahead and get started, because it's been a hot minute. And if you did not know, all of the new episodes of Storytime, all of the recent readings that we've done, Charlotte's Web, Stuart Little, A Series of Unfortunate Events, Book 5, and even Taran Wanderer are now on the YouTube channel. So those who are subscribed have been notified, but if you haven't already done so, there is a literal link in my bio to my YouTube channel for Storytime with Chris. Like, share, subscribe. It only takes less than 5 seconds, y'all. Any amount of support is very much so appreciated. And let's be very clear, I do not do this for profit. I do it to get kids and adults excited about reading. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get back into Lloyd Alexander's Taran Wanderer, which Taran has... Oh no! Oh no! Oh, that's not fair. Oh, y'all, oh no. Gracious. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to sound so shocked. I think I may have accidentally spilled some oil on my book. Oh, gosh. Well, it's okay. That's why we have good cleaning materials to fix that. So later on today, I'm going to go ahead and try to dry it out to fix it. Oh, my goodness. Well, it didn't bleed through all the pages, which it'll dry. It's okay. I'm gonna just have to put it in a place where it's not gonna get messed up. I don't know. Oh, it's on my desk. Okay. Sorry. Okay. We'll fix it later. We'll fix it in post. It's all right. So as I was saying, Taran and Gurgi have been traveling the free Kamot. So it's basically an area of Prydain that there are no cantrevs, there are no lords, lording over the people. It's kind of free reign. It's basically what happened in America in the early mid 1800s when people were going out west to explore the newer parts of America. And of course, for those who don't know, the Trail of Tears and the unfortunate forced removal of Native Americans outside of their native lands in order for people to move out west, which is very unfortunate, but very much so a fact. This area is kind of similar, but it's more so of what I consider to be the indigenous people of the Welsh world. So, in the context of this fictional story. So, besides that, let's go ahead and get into it, because Taran is adding some skills. Not only did he learn how to be a blacksmith, he also learned how to be a weaver and make clothes. He made a cloak. He made his own new sword to replace the one that was taken from him by Dorath, the mercenary leader from earlier chapters. So now we're getting into the next occupation he may learn. Interesting. Chapter 19. The Potter's Wheel. I've told you where you are, the men went on good-heartedly as Taran dismounted at the bank of the stream. Now might you be willing to tell me who you are, and what brings you to a place whose name you must ask? Have you lost your way and found out Marin when you sought another Kamot? I am called Wanderer, Taran replied. As for losing my way, he added with a laugh, I can't say that I have, for I'm not sure myself where my path lies. Then Marin is as fair a place as any to break your journey, the man said. Come along, if you see what hospitality I can offer the two of you. As the man dropped a last spadeful of clay into the wooden buckets, Taran stepped forward and offered to carry them, and since the man did not refuse, he set his shoulders under the yoke. But the buckets were heavier than Taran reckoned. His brow soon burst out in sweat. He could barely stagger along under the weight he felt doubling at every pace, and the hut to which the man pointed seemed to grow farther instead of closer. If you seek daub to mend your chimney, Taran gasped, you've come a long way to find it. You're not caught the trick of that yoke, said the man, grinning broadly at Taran's effort. He shouldered the buckets, which Taran gladly gave back, and strode along so briskly, despite the weight of his burden, that he nearly outdistanced the companions. Arriving in a long shed, he poured the clay into a great wooden vat, then beckoned the wayfarers to enter his hut. Inside, Taran saw racks and shelves holding earthenware of all kinds, vessels of plain baked clay, graceful jars, and among these at random pieces whose craftsmanship and beauty made him catch his breath. Only once in the treasure house of Lord Gast had he set eyes on handiwork such as this. He turned and astonished to the old man who had begun laying dishes and bowls on an oaken table. When I asked you if you sought dab to mend your chimney, I spoke foolishly, Taran said, humbly bowing. If this is your work, I have seen some of it before, and I know you. Anlaw, clay shaper? The potter nodded. My work it is. If you've seen it, it may be that indeed you do know me. For I am old in my craft, wanderer, and no longer sure where the clay ends and Anlaw begins, or in truth, if they're not one and the same. Taran looked closer at the vessel crowding the hut, at the newly finished wine bowl shaped even more skillfully than the one in Lord Gast's trove, at the long clay-splattered tables covered with jars of paints, pigments, and glazes. Now he saw in wonder that what he had first taken for common scullery ware was as beautiful in its own way as the wine bowl. All had come from a master's hand. He turned to Anlaw. It was told to me, Taran said, that one piece of your making is worth more than all of a Cantree's lord's treasure house, and I well believe it. And here, he shook his head in amazement, this is a treasure house in and of itself.
Yes, yes, Gergie cried. All skillful potter gains riches and virtues and fortunes from clever shapings.
Riches and fortune, replied Anlaw, smiling. Food for my table, rather. Most of these pots and bowls I send to the small comots where the folk I have no potter of their own. As I give what they need, they give what I need, and treasure is what I need the least. My joy is in the craft, not the gain. I'll repeat that for the record. My joy is in the craft, not the gain. Meaning that he loves the work that he does, not to get something in return, but because of the joy it brings to other people and to himself. Loving your craft. Would all the fortunes in Prydain help my fingers shape a better bowl? There are these, Taran said, half in earnest as he glanced at the potter's wheel, who claim work such as yours comes by enchantment. At this, Anlaw threw back his head and laughed heartily. I wish it did, for it would spare much toil. No, no, wanderer. My wheel, alas, is like any other. True it is, he added, that Govanian the Lame, master craftsman of Prydain, long ago fashioned all manner of enchanted implements. He gave them to whom he deemed would use them wisely and well, but one by one they fell into the clutches of Auror Deathlord. Now all are gone. But Govanian too discovered and set down the high secrets of all crafts, Enlaw went on. These as well Aurord stole to hoard in Anuvan, where none may have ever profit from them. The potter's face turned grave. A lifetime have I striven to discover them again, to guess what might have been their nature. Much have I learned by doing, as a child learns to walk, but my steps falter. The deepest lore yet lies beyond my grasp. I fear it ever shall. Let me gain this lore, Anlaw said, and I'll yearn for no magical tools. Let me find the knowledge in these, he added, holding up his clay-crusted hands. These will be enough to serve me, these hands. But you know what you seek, Taran answered. I, alas, seek without knowing even where to look. He then told Anlaw of Hevend, the smith, Duvak, the weaver woman, of the sword and the cloak he had made. I was proud of my work, Taran went on, yet at the end neither anvil nor loom satisfied me. What of the potter's wheel? Asked Anlaw when Taran admitted he knew nothing of this craft, and prayed Anlaw to let him see the shaping of clay. The old potter willingly agreed. Anlaw drew up his coarse robe and seated himself by the wheel, which he quickly set spinning, and on it flung a lump of clay. The potter bent almost humbly to his work and reached out his hands as tenderly as if it were lifting an unfledged bird. Before Taran's eyes, Anlaw began shaping a tall, slender vessel. As Taran stared in awe, the clay seemed to shimmer on the swiftly turning wheel and to change from moment to moment. Now Taran understood Anlaw's words, for indeed between the potter's deft fingers and the clay he saw no separation, as though Anlaw's hands flowed into the clay and gave it life. Anlaw was silent and intent. His lined face had brightened. The years had fallen away from it. Taran felt his heart filled with a joy that seemed to reach from the potter to himself, and in that moment understood that he was in the presence of a true master craftsman, greater than any he had ever known. Fluter was wrong, Taran murmured. If there is enchantment, it lies not in the potter's will, but in the potter. Enchantment there is none, answered Anlaw, never turning from his work. A gift, perhaps, but a gift that bears with it much toil. If I can make a thing of such beauty, it is toil I would welcome, Taran said. Sit you down, then, said Anlaw, making room for Taran at the wheel. Shape the clay for yourself. When Taran protested he would spoil Anlaw's half-formed vessel, the potter only laughed. Spoil it, if you will, surely. I'll toss it back into the kneading trough, mix it with the other clay, and sooner or later it will serve again. It will not be lost, indeed nothing ever is, but comes back in one shape or another. But for yourself, Taran said, the skill you've already put in it will be wasted. The potter shook his head. Not so! Craftsmanship isn't like water in an earthen pot, to be taken out by the dipper full until it's empty. No, the more drawn out, the more remains. The heart renews itself, wanderer, and still skill grows all the better for it. Here, then, your hands, thus, your thumbs, thus, kneading this clay. For the first moment, Taran felt the clay whirling beneath his feet. His heart leaped with the same joy he had seen on the potter's face. The pride of forging his own sword and weaving his own cloak dwindled before this new discovery that made him cry out in sudden delight. But his hands faltered and the clay went awry. Anlaw stopped the wheel. Taran's first vessel was so lopsided and misshapen that despite his disappointment, he threw back his head and laughed. Anlaw clapped him on the shoulder. Well tried, wanderer. The first bowl I turned was as ill-favored, and worse. You have the touch for it, but before you learn the craft, you must first learn the clay. Dig, sift, and knead it. Oh, excuse me. Know its nature better than that of your closest companions. Then gird pigments of your glazes, and understand how the fire of the kiln works upon them. Anlaw Clay Shaper, Taran said in a low voice that hid nothing of his yearning. Will you teach me the craft? This is more than all else I long to do. Anlaw hesitated several moments and looked deeply at Taran. I can teach you only what you can learn, said the potter. How much that may be, time will tell. Stay if that is your wish. Tomorrow we shall begin. The two wayfarers made themselves comfortable that night in a snug corner of the pottery shed. Gurgi curled on the straw pallet, but Taran sat with knees drawn up and arms clasped around them. "It's strange," he murmured. "The more of the Kamot folk I've known, the fonder have I grown of them. Yet Kamot Marin drew me at first sight closer than all the others. The night was soft and still." Taran smiled wistfully in the darkness. "The moment I saw it, I thought it the one place I'd be content to dwell, and that even Ilanwe might be happy here. And at Anlaw's wheel," he went on, "when my hands touched the clay, I knew I would count myself happy to be a potter. More than smithing, more than weaving, it is as though I could speak through my fingers, as though I could give shape to what was in my heart. I understand what Anlaw meant. There is no difference between him and his work. Indeed, Anlaw puts himself into the clay and makes it live with his own life. If I too might learn to do this." Gurgi did not answer. The weary creature was fast asleep. Taran smiled and drew the cloak over Gurgi's shoulders. "Sleep well," he said. "We may have come to the end of our journey." Anlaw was as good on his word. In the days that followed, the potter showed Taran skills no less important than the working of the clay itself. The finding of proper earths, judging their texture and quality, sifting, mixing, tempering. Gurgi joined Taran in all the tasks, and soon his shaggy hair grew so crusted with dirt, mud, and gritty glaze that he looked like an unbaked clay pot set on a pair of skinny legs. The summer sped quickly and happily, and the more Taran saw the potter at his craft, the more he marveled. At the kneading trough, Anlaw pounded the clay with greater vigor than Hevid the smith at his anvil, and at the wheel did the most intricate work with a deftness surpassing even that of Duvak, the weaver woman. As early as he rose in the mornings, Taran also found the potter already up and about his tasks. Anlaw was tireless, often spending nights without sleep and days without food, absorbed in labor at his wheel. Seldom was the potter content to repeat a pattern, but strove to better even what he himself had originated. "Stale water is a poor drink," said Anlaw. "Stale skill is worse, and the man who walks in his own footsteps only ends where he began." Not until autumn did Anlaw let Taran try his hand at the wheel again. This time, the bowl Taran shaped was not as ill-formed as the other. Anlaw, studying it carefully, nodded his head and told him, "You've learned a little, wanderer." Nevertheless, to Taran's dismay, Anlaw cast the bowl into the kneading trough. "But never fear," said the potter. "When you shape one worth the keeping, it will be fired in the kiln." Though Taran feared such a time might never come, it was not long before Anlaw judged a vessel, a shallow bowl simple in design, yet well proportioned to be ready for firing. He set it, along with other pots and bowls he had crafted for the folk of Kamot Isav, into a kiln taller and deeper than heaven's furnace, while Anlaw calmly turned to finishing other vessels for the Kamot folk. Taran's anxiety grew until he felt that he himself was baking in the flames. But at last, when the firing was done, and the pieces had cooled, the potter drew out the bowl, turned it around in his hands, and as Taran waited breathlessly and tapped it with a clay-rimmed finger, he grinned at Taran. "It rings true. Beginner's work, wanderer, but not to be ashamed of." Taran's heart lifted as he had fashioned a wine bowl handsomer than ever Lord Gast had seen. But his joy changed soon to despair. Through autumn Taran shaped other vessels, yet to his own growing dismay none satisfied him, none matched his hopes despite the painful toil he poured into the work. "What lacks?" he cried to Anlaw. "I could forge a sword well enough and weave a cloak well enough, but now what I truly long to grasp is beyond my reach. Must the one skill I sought above all be denied me?" He burst out in an anguished voice. "Is the gift forbidden me?" He bowed his head, and his heart froze even as he spoke the words, for he knew within himself he had touched the truth. Anlaw did not gainsay him, but only looked at him for a long while with deep sadness. "Why?" Taran whispered. "Why is this so?" "It is a heavy question," Anlaw replied at last. He put a hand on Taran's shoulder. "Indeed, no man can answer it. There are those who have labored all their lives to gain the gift, striving until the end only to find themselves mistaken. and those who had it born in them yet never knew, those who lost sought heart too soon, and those who should never have begun at all. Count yourself lucky, the potter went on, that you have understood this now and not spent your years in vain hope. This much have you learned, and no learning is wasted. What then shall I do? Taran asked. Grief and bitterness, such as he had known in Craddock's Valley, flooded over him. There are more ways to happiness than in the shaping of a pot, replied Anlaw. You have been happy in Marin. You still can be. There is work for you to do. Your help is welcome and valuable to me as a friend, as much as an apprentice. Why, look you now, he went on in a cheerful tone. Tomorrow I would send my ware to Kamot Isav. But a day's journey is long for one of my years. As a friend, will you bear the burden for me? Taran nodded. I will carry your word to Isav. He turned away, knowing that his happiness was ended, like a flawed vessel shattering in the firing. And that is where we will end for today. All right. So I'm going to let that dry later. But as always, thank you so much for joining me. I'm back. Storytime's not going anywhere, even when I take these breaks. I love you all very much, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.